Imagine this. You step into a vibrant social gathering, a space buzzing with overlapping conversations, bursts of laughter, and the unmistakable energy of human connection. Smiles are exchanged, hands are shaken, and discussions unfold with enthusiasm. To most, this is the pinnacle of social engagement, a place where bonds are reinforced and interactions are filled with supposed meaning. Now shift your attention to a solitary figure standing at the edge of the room. There is no trace of nervousness, awkwardness, or loneliness in their demeanor. Instead, they appear completely disinterested in the spectacle before them. Their thoughts are elsewhere, engaged in something far more compelling than the small talk and surface-level exchanges surrounding them. While the crowd indulges in casual conversation, this individual remains distant, detached from the moment, unmoved by the trivial interactions that others find so captivating. Why do highly intelligent people often seem withdrawn from social life? Is it due to arrogance, introversion, or something even more profound? Could it be that intelligence naturally fosters a preference for solitude? And if so, why does this occur? Today we will delve into the fascinating insights of Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brilliant and unconventional philosophers of the 19th century. His radical views on intelligence and social life challenge everything we have been conditioned to believe. And by the time this video ends, you will understand why exceptionally intelligent individuals frequently find little value in social interactions. The final revelation will be the most eye-opening of all, one that might forever change how you perceive your own relationships. Schopenhauer asserted that intelligence and solitude are deeply interconnected. The more intelligent a person is, the less they depend on social engagement for stimulation or affirmation. This is because their minds are naturally rich with intricate thoughts, ideas, and internal dialogues that render external distractions unnecessary. In his groundbreaking work, The World as Will and Representation, he explains that the average individual seeks social company because their mind is void of meaningful content when left alone, whereas highly intelligent people possess an internal universe so expansive that solitude becomes a source of fulfillment rather than isolation. This raises a crucial question. Is social interaction truly essential for happiness, or is it merely a belief instilled in us from an early age? From childhood, we are encouraged to form friendships, engage socially, and participate in group activities as if these are vital to our well-being. Society teaches us that those who prefer solitude are somehow deprived or missing out on life. Yet history presents a different narrative. Some of the most extraordinary minds, Isaac Newton, Nikola Tesla, Emily Dickinson, Franz Kafka, and even Schopenhauer himself, chose to distance themselves from the distractions of social life. Were they miserable, or did they uncover a truth that eludes most people? Schopenhauer perceived socializing not as an inherent human necessity, but as an escape mechanism for those who lack depth. He believed that individuals who constantly seek interaction do so because they cannot endure the silence of their own minds. To him, the majority of conversations are filled with trivial chatter, gossip, and empty exchanges that serve no significant intellectual or personal purpose. Conversely, the intelligent individual is self-sufficient. They do not pursue companionship out of necessity, but rather engage in it selectively, only when it aligns with a greater purpose. Now take a moment to reflect. Have you ever felt emotionally drained after socializing? Have you noticed that while others seem invigorated by conversation, you often feel depleted, as if your energy has been siphoned rather than replenished? If so, you are not alone. Many highly intelligent individuals experience a sense of detachment from conventional social structures, not out of misanthropy, but because they recognize the illusion of social necessity. Of course, some might argue that humans are inherently social beings, that we evolved to depend on communal relationships for survival and emotional stability. And to a certain degree, this is true. But Schopenhauer offered a different perspective. He maintained that while social structures serve practical functions, such as cooperation, trade, and external security, they do not inherently contribute to deep personal fulfillment. In fact, he argued that excessive socializing often distracts from genuine intellectual and personal development. He likened people to empty vessels. Those with little intellectual depth require external stimuli, conversations, entertainment, and social validation to feel complete. In contrast, those with vast internal worlds have no such need. Their thoughts, creativity, and ideas provide an endless reservoir of engagement, making solitude not only preferable, but crucial for their intellectual and emotional well-being. This perspective challenges one of society's deepest assumptions, that being social is an unquestioned virtue. But is it? Or is it simply a means of avoiding the discomfort of solitude and self-reflection? Schopenhauer also recognized another significant flaw in social life, one that intelligent individuals often perceive with clarity. Within social settings, conformity is inevitable. People engage in predictable discussions, adhere to social norms, and suppress their true thoughts to blend in. Highly intelligent individuals, however, resist this compulsion. They prioritize authenticity over acceptance, depth over superficiality, and truth over politeness. This unwillingness to conform sets them apart, individuals who do not seamlessly align with conventional social expectations. This is why many great thinkers throughout history have been misjudged, ostracized, or even labeled as difficult or reclusive. It is not that they reject society, but rather that they see beyond its facades. They understand that much of what is considered connection is often nothing more than a routine exchange, dictated by social norms rather than genuine substance. But here's the real question. If intelligent individuals naturally gravitate towards solitude, does this mean they find no worth in social interactions? Or is there a way for them to engage with others in a way that feels meaningful and fulfilling? This is where Schopenhauer's most profound insight emerges, one that we will analyze in depth as we proceed, and the ultimate realization will be the most transformative of all. Schopenhauer's philosophy challenges everything we take for granted about the significance of social life. If highly intelligent individuals do not feel the need to be constantly surrounded by others, what truly underlies their detachment? Is it merely a personal inclination, or is there a deeper reason why social interactions seem unimportant or even draining to them? To uncover this, we must delve into another crucial aspect of Schopenhauer's thought, the distinction between solitude and loneliness. According to him, loneliness is a state that arises from a sense of lack, whereas solitude is a condition of self-sufficiency. Most people dread being alone because they equate it with emotional void. But for an intelligent mind, that void does not exist. Solitude. In fact, Schopenhauer believed that solitude is not only advantageous, but essential for those who seek wisdom, self-reflection, and inner growth. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever been surrounded by others yet felt utterly disconnected? Have you ever participated in a conversation only to realize that it lacked true significance? This is precisely what Schopenhauer described. The recognition that much of social interaction is based on surface-level exchanges rather than deep intellectual or emotional connection. In many ways, society ingrains in us the belief that solitude is unnatural, that isolation is something to be feared and avoided. But Schopenhauer had a different perspective. He argued that solitude nurtures the highest forms of contemplation and creativity, whereas constant socializing hinders true introspection. He wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free." This idea is profound. It implies that the need for socialization is often a form of dependence, an inability to be alone with one's own thoughts. The intelligent individual, however, does not fear solitude. They embrace it because it grants them the liberty to think, to create, and to understand themselves without external interference. Consider some of history's greatest minds. Many deliberately chose isolation, not because they were incapable of socializing, but because they found greater fulfillment in solitude. Isaac Newton spent years in seclusion, developing his theories of motion and gravity. Nikola Tesla remained single and devoted his life to his work. Emily Dickinson rarely left her home, yet she produced some of the most profound poetry ever written. These individuals were not lonely. They were immersed in the vastness of their own minds. But there is another reason why highly intelligent individuals often withdraw from social life, one that extends beyond mere preference. Schopenhauer observed that most human interactions are not driven by an authentic exchange of ideas, but by societal expectations, ego, and even underlying competition. He believed that, in social environments, people frequently seek validation rather than truth, which can be deeply disheartening for those who value intellectual honesty. Consider this in your own experience. How often do you engage in conversations that feel genuinely meaningful? How frequently do you encounter individuals who are more inclined to listen than to speak? For highly intelligent individuals, these shallow exchanges can feel like an exercise in futility. They recognize the mask that people wear, the way individuals tailor their personas to align with social conventions, the way they evade profound discussions in favor of trivial chatter, the way they seek approval instead of truth. Schopenhauer asserted that intelligence naturally heightens one's awareness of these social mechanics, and the more one perceives them, the less one desires to engage in them. He noted that intelligent individuals often struggle to find others who truly comprehend them, not due to arrogance, but simply because their mode of thinking is fundamentally different. They perceive reality through a lens that many do not, which often makes them feel like outsiders. But this presents a challenging dilemma. If social life is predominantly filled with superficiality, should highly intelligent individuals completely withdraw? Do human relationships hold any real value for them? Schopenhauer's response to this was nuanced. He did not dismiss all social interactions as meaningless, only that most of them are. He proposed that the key lies in selectivity. Intelligent individuals should not completely withdraw from social life, but they must be intentional about who they spend their time with. He emphasized forming relationships based on true intellectual and emotional connection rather than mere social obligation. He also made a critical distinction between different forms of solitude. Some solitude fosters growth and introspection, while other forms arise from bitterness or alienation. The former is constructive, while the latter can become destructive. Schopenhauer cautioned against allowing intellectual superiority to breed disdain for others. He asserted that true wisdom lies in understanding society's nature while maintaining a degree of detachment. So how should intelligent individuals navigate this balance? How can they embrace solitude without completely severing ties with the world? The answer lies in Schopenhauer's most profound insight, one that reveals the ultimate reason why intelligent individuals are indifferent to social life and what they prioritize instead. Schopenhauer's philosophy leads to a striking revelation, one that many intelligent people arrive at independently, whether consciously or unconsciously. It is not that they outright reject society or lack the ability to engage in social interactions. Rather, they recognize a fundamental truth. Most human interactions are not rooted in substance, but in necessity, habit, and social conditioning. This realization changes everything. If most people participate in social life, not because they seek deep connections, but because they fear solitude, then what does this say about human relationships? Schopenhauer believed that much of what people consider friendship or companionship is often founded on mutual need rather than genuine connection. This is a challenging concept because it questions one of our most deeply ingrained beliefs, that relationships hold inherent value. But Schopenhauer forces us to consider, are they truly meaningful, or do we pursue them merely to avoid facing ourselves? He argued that most friendships are transactional. People form connections not necessarily due to profound compatibility, but because of shared circumstances, work, school, convenience. When these circumstances shift, the connection often dissolves. This is why so many friendships fade over time. The bond was never based on true understanding. It was dictated by external conditions that no longer exist. Intelligent individuals recognize this pattern and, as a result, become highly selective with their relationships. They do not invest in connections that lack depth or authenticity. This perspective is not cynical, it is freeing. When you stop seeking validation from social life, you gain the freedom to build relationships based on true alignment rather than obligation. Schopenhauer himself was deeply skeptical of the idea that social success or popularity equated to intelligence or fulfillment. He observed that history's greatest thinkers often lived in solitude, not because society rejected them, but because they chose a different path. Consider Leonardo da Vinci. He was deeply introspective, preferring the solitude of his studies over the distractions of social gatherings. His mind was occupied with ideas, inventions, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. To him, socializing was a diversion from his higher purpose. The same applied to Nikola Tesla, who famously stated that he never married because he believed relationships would hinder his work. These individuals were not lonely. They were consumed by something greater than social interaction. But if intelligent people do not seek social validation, what do they seek instead? The answer lies in what Schopenhauer valued above all else: wisdom. He believed that the highest form of existence was one dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge and self-mastery. For deep thinkers, time spent in contemplation is far more valuable than time spent in trivial conversation. They do not chase popularity or social dominance. They seek a profound understanding of reality. This is where Schopenhauer's philosophy takes an even more radical turn. He proposed that true wisdom requires a certain detachment, not just from social life, but from the illusions that most people accept without question. To him, the average person is trapped in a cycle of endless distractions, chasing status, approval, entertainment, without ever pausing to reflect. Intelligent individuals, on the other hand, naturally distance themselves from these pursuits because they recognize them for what they are: fleeting and often meaningless. Consider how much of social life revolves around performance. People carefully construct their identities, filtering their words and actions to fit societal expectations. There is an unspoken pressure to conform, to be agreeable, to maintain appearances, and to avoid uncomfortable truths. For those who see through this, participation in such a system feels exhausting. Schopenhauer described this as the burden of clarity. The more you understand, the harder it becomes to tolerate illusions. This does not mean intelligent individuals never engage in social life. Rather, they approach it with a different mindset. They are not attached to it, nor do they define themselves by it. They see it as something that can be useful at times, but ultimately unnecessary for deeper fulfillment. This is the reason why many intellectuals prefer intimate, meaningful conversations to large social gatherings. It explains their tendency to seek out individuals who challenge them intellectually, rather than those who simply offer companionship. Yet here lies the greatest paradox. While intelligent people often withdraw from social life, they are the ones most capable of comprehending human nature at its deepest level. Their solitude is not an escape from humanity. It is an effort to understand it with greater clarity. Schopenhauer himself argued that wisdom is derived from observing life from a distance, without becoming fully immersed in it. Only by stepping away can one appreciate the broader perspective. This concept directly challenges the conventional wisdom that social life holds the greatest value. If profound thinking naturally leads to solitude, then perhaps true intelligence is not measured by social success, but by the ability to embrace solitude without feeling incomplete. This notion is difficult for modern society to accept, as it conflicts with the prevailing belief that social connection represents the ultimate fulfillment. But Schopenhauer compels us to ask, is that truly the case? Or have we been conditioned to think so because solitude feels uncomfortable to most people? As we approach the final and most potent insight from Schopenhauer, we are forced to confront the ultimate question. If intellectually gifted individuals don't prioritize social life, what do they value above all else? And how can this realization change the way we approach our own lives? Schopenhauer's ultimate insight is both profound and unsettling. The highest form of fulfillment does not come from external sources, but from within. He argued that those who seek happiness through social life are often chasing an illusion, while those who nurture inner depth, wisdom, and self-mastery experience something far more enduring. At the heart of his philosophy lies the idea that human suffering stems from desires, our endless yearning for validation, pleasure, and distraction. Most people, he noted, spend their lives in a state of ceaseless pursuit. They chase relationships, status, and entertainment, believing these things will bring happiness. But even when they attain their desires, the satisfaction is fleeting. Before long, a new craving arises, and the cycle begins anew. Intellectuals, however, are more likely to see through this illusion. They understand that true contentment doesn't come from external validation, but from living a life rooted in deeper purpose and understanding. This is why they often distance themselves from superficial social interactions. It's not that they disdain people, it's that they refuse to engage in distractions that divert them from their true pursuits. This realization is transformative because it forces us to ask, What if everything we've been taught about fulfillment is wrong? What if happiness doesn't come from being surrounded by others, but from cultivating our own minds and spirits? Schopenhauer believed that the most intelligent individuals do not fear solitude because they have learned to make peace with themselves. Rather than seeking external stimulation, they nurture inner richness. They read, reflect, and create. They pursue knowledge not for social admiration, but because it is its own reward. He wrote, "The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him." In other words, those who are deeply intelligent and introspective do not perceive life in simplistic, surface-level terms. They question, analyze, and search for meaning. And because of this, they often feel disconnected from mainstream society, which tends to avoid profound existential questions. But here is where Schopenhauer makes his most compelling argument. Solitude is not merely a preference. It is a necessity for those who seek true wisdom. He cautioned that being constantly surrounded by society's noise can hinder one's ability to think independently. The expectations of others, the pressures to conform, and the endless distractions, all of these pull people away from the most important journey, the inward journey. For this reason, he saw solitude not as isolation, but as a form of liberation. He believed the greatest minds in history achieved their potential not by immersing themselves in social life, but by withdrawing from it. By detaching from society's ordinary concerns, they were able to see reality more clearly and devote themselves to higher endeavors. This challenges everything modern culture teaches us about social life. We are perpetually urged to network, to form relationships, and to avoid being alone. But Schopenhauer forces us to question, is this truly essential, or have we simply been conditioned to think so because society fears solitude? When we examine history, we see that many of the most remarkable thinkers, artists, and inventors lived in a state of partial or total withdrawal from mainstream life. They weren't interested in casual socializing or shallow entertainment. They were consumed by something greater: ideas, work, and the search for meaning. But does this imply that social life holds no value whatsoever? Schopenhauer did not take it that far. He recognized that human connections can indeed be meaningful, but only when they are founded on genuine intellectual or emotional depth. He cautioned against surrounding oneself with people merely to avoid loneliness. He maintained that when faced with the choice between shallow company and solitude, solitude is always the superior option. So where does that leave us? Should we completely abandon social life? Not necessarily. However, Schopenhauer's insights present a radical shift in viewpoint. Rather than seeking fulfillment through others, we must first cultivate it within ourselves. Instead of fearing solitude, we should embrace it as a means of growth and self-discovery. Instead of chasing external validation, we should prioritize knowledge, wisdom, and personal development. This is the ultimate revelation. Highly intelligent individuals do not care for social life because they have uncovered something far more precious: the ability to think independently, to create freely, and to exist without the constant need for external approval. They realize that true fulfillment is not found in the presence of others, but in the development of the self. Now the question shifts to you. What would your life be like if you embraced solitude as a strength rather than a weakness? If you stopped seeking outside validation and focused solely on your own growth, how much more could you accomplish? Perhaps the greatest minds in history were not mere anomalies, but pioneers. And perhaps the path they traveled, the path of introspection, independence, and intellectual freedom, is the very path that leads to the deepest form of fulfillment.